Hello everyone and welcome. I'm still here, still recording. Scott won't let me leave the garage.
Well, Joshy Poo, maybe you shouldn't have been slacking. We've got so much content to catch up with on YouTube.
Scott, come on, I've been filming for 9 hours now. Please, give me a break.
Well, maybe if you got it right on the first take, we wouldn't have to keep doing this, would we? Come on now, back to work.
But I'm hungry and cold and sad. Anyway, spoilers as usual, let's crack on with this review. Morningstar is a very solid episode of The Walking Dead, and I would say that it's my personal favourite of the 3 episodes that have aired so far during this second half of the season. The overarching plot isn't anything that we haven't seen in the past, it's just basically our protagonist preparing for an attack by a walker horde. How many times have we seen that before? But this episode does do a fantastic job of building up to the climatic action sequence, and come the end of the episode, I really didn't want it to end. During this week's episode, Alpha has decided that she is going to attack Hilltop, and I don't really know her reasoning as to why she's targeting Hilltop specifically, rather than, say, Alexandria. Maybe it's just closer to where she is. I don't know. But anyway, Lydia is the one to deliver this message that her mummy is coming to the citizens of Hilltop, which then leads the majority of the characters within that community to have time to reflect on their sad, depressing, regret-filled lives, much like I do on a regular basis. Why doesn't anyone love me? And it all makes for a rather depressing and at the same time uplifting episode in which characters put aside their old feuds, basically because they know that they might die to Alpha's horde. A perfect example of this is when Zeke and Carol reunites with one another. Zeke shows Carol her tumour, which then leads to the two having sex. Not because Carol is turned on at the sight of a tumour or anything, but they just have sex after it. And it seems like maybe things might go back to how they used to be. Maybe these two will be loved up again. But nope, after the dirty deed is done, which doesn't actually seem to take all that long, I mean, come on Ezekiel, you've got to do better than this, the two basically realise that things are never going to be the same as they were before. All it was sex with the ex, which at the time seems like a good idea, but once it's all over and done with, you basically just find yourself lying there cold, sad, lonely, and covered in cum. What? Anyway, the point is that although some viewers might find it rather depressing that Zeke and Carol weren't able to reconcile and get back together, this is just what happens sometimes. Sometimes people change, sometimes people move on, sometimes people try to go back and find that it just isn't the same, too much time has passed, people are hurt too much, and this isn't a rom-com. Things can't just be fixed like that. And I actually appreciated that approach to storytelling rather than having the two just have sex and then ride off together in the sunset again, because that's not what happens in real life. It did make for melancholic viewing, but I like how Angela Kang continues to present the characters in the show as human. I mean, if Scott Gimple handled this scene, it probably would have played out something like this.
Carol, I gotta tell you something. I got a tumor. I'm dying.
Oh my God, Ezekiel, I'm so sad.
I know, Carol, I know. But just remember, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel pain. Life is a journey that we are all on.
I love you, Ezekiel.
I love you too, Carol. Let's remarry.
Eugene and Rosita are also two characters who get to reflect on their past, and Eugene gets the moment he's been waiting years for when Rosita offers him the chance to kiss her. And if any of you out there watched my trailer video of the second half of this season, what did I say? I said that they wouldn't kiss each other, and guess what? They didn't. But no one listens to me, no one listens to old Josh, because Josh isn't Trevs-chan, and Josh doesn't make good predictions like Trevs-chan does. Fuck. Anyway, sorry about that. So Rosita offers Eugene the chance to kiss her and says, come on, what are you waiting for? And a couple of years ago, Eugene would have jumped at the chance to stick his tongue down Rosita's throat. However, it's alluded to that this episode that he likes Stephanie, and he decides to choose her over Rosita. Now, I'm sure that I'm not the only one who finds the actress who plays Rosita to be incredibly attractive, so I can understand why Eugene fancies her, but deep down he must know that these two just aren't compatible. Yes, he obviously finds her physically attractive, but they have next to nothing in common, and it's obvious that Stephanie is much more suited for him. You know, Eugene doesn't know what Stephanie looks like. She could be a lot less attractive than Rosita, but Eugene decides it's better to take a chance on a girl who he has stuff in common with rather than just going out with someone because they're nice to look at. And I think that is actually an incredibly mature decision on his part, and I don't think it's something he would have done a couple of years ago. Now, in no way am I saying that if you go out with someone attractive, you're immature. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point is, I just think that, for me personally, yeah, someone might be good looking, but if you have next to nothing in common, it just isn't going to work. Yeah, I absolutely do believe that ultimately you have to find your partner attractive, physically attractive to some degree. I mean, you can't go out with someone who you find repulsive because that's just not going to work, no matter how nice they are. But ultimately, Eugene's realised that although Rosita might be a hugely attractive woman, he needs someone who is geeky and similar to him, and I kind of like that he's chosen Stephanie over Rosita, because despite the fact that a lot of Walking Dead fans of the comics, and I'm a comic book fan myself, seem to be pining for this Rosita and Eugene relationship, they've got next to nothing in common. I don't think it would work long term. I just think it's pointless. So I'm glad that he's made the decision that he has done. Anyway, moving on from Eugene to a character that I didn't think I would ever really be talking about, and that is L. Sutton. He's just not a guy I've really ever given a shit about, but I actually quite liked him this episode. As a dad, I liked how passionate he was about, you know, this child who he's taken in as his son, and how he was pissed off at what the Whisperers and Gamma did to her. I liked hearing him say about how they should stay and fight, and I also, at the end, enjoyed seeing him doing his little rally war call and getting everyone on board ready to fight. And yeah, he's not really a character I've ever really given a second thought to, but I felt that he came across as really genuine and likeable in this episode, and that probably just means he's going to die now, because that's what tends to happen with characters as soon as I like them. So yeah, hopefully L. Sutton doesn't die next week. And I didn't really think I'd say that, because before, if he died, I wouldn't have bat an eyelid. So yeah, he came out as quite a cool character this week, I think. Getting back to what I mentioned earlier about characters setting aside their past, Daryl and Zeke had a heart-to-heart and sort of realised that they needed to set aside their differences, and that their past conflicts about Carol were ultimately pointless, and they didn't really need, there was no real reason for them to hate each other, and they both came to the decision that if one of them was to die during this battle, then the other would have to run off and escape with the kids. Now, that to me means that Ezekiel's going to die. He's already got a death sentence with his tumour anyway. I don't think there's no way that Daryl is going to die in this battle. Again, like I said in the last video, Daryl will be the last man standing. I think he's going to be on the show for as long as Norman Reedus wants to be on it. So I think, unfortunately, this means that Zeke could be dying very soon. Before I get to talking about the climactic battle, I want to talk about Negan and Alpha's weird relationship, which continues. And I'm not sure how I feel about Negan at the moment, to be honest. I never really saw Negan getting in this deep with the Whisperers, but then maybe that's because I'm a comic book reader and he doesn't spend that much time with them in the comics before doing what he does. And yeah, I just think it's all a bit strange. He gets his skin suit, as he calls it, and you see him wandering around with the Whisperers, and they're all saying, I can't remember what it is, something like, "We are the end of the world," or whispering or some shit, and he's there clearly, I don't know if he does it or not, but he's clearly going along with it, and you just think that Negan's a guy who jokes about everything that he finds strange and doesn't agree with, and I just feel the idea of him wearing a skin suit, roaming around with them as they chant and stuff, he would just be like, yeah, this is too fucking weird for me. You're all weirdos, I'm not doing this. So it's strange that his character is now doing that kind of stuff. Maybe it's just because he is desperately trying to fit in and trying to be part of a group after sort of everything that happened to him at Alexandria, I don't know, but it's just odd, and I'm hoping that ultimately he does have an ace up his sleeve. He is going to help our protagonist rather than him now just being evil and on Alpha's team. I don't think that he will be able to sit back and see Hilltop burn down, especially if he knows that Judith is inside, so I think there's going to be something that tips him over the edge, and I'm hoping that Negan hasn't just decided to be an arsehole again, and that he will come back to sort of being the nicer dude that he's been portrayed as during the last season and a bit. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, at the moment I'm really not too sure about him. But then that's Negan. you can never be sure about him. One week I like him and then the next week I'm questioning his motives, so who knows. So now we come to the final battle, in which I felt it was really well choreographed and there were some good action moments. It's a far cry from this mid-season premiere because I could actually see what the hell was going on, and it was impressive seeing how tactically clever our group at Hilltop was, with them splitting up and having the barbed and having the electric wire at first and firing arrows, and yeah, it was like they were a proper little army and I enjoyed seeing it. And also I need to mention the music beforehand, leading up to this point, you know, when Daryl's walking out with slow motion and the music playing in the background, because it really stirred up the emotions and it made the whole thing seem really heroic when you're seeing this music play and these characters standing there ready to face thousands of the undead. Now I know it's a bit cliche having this heroic uplifting music and panning across every character as they stand there and say, "This is our final battle, blah blah blah," but it worked for me, so I don't really care if it's cliche. It got my emotions going, it made me feel like, you know, pumped up and ready for it, so yeah, it did its job. Really, it just adds to what I was saying previously about how the build-up to this battle was really good, because you had these moments where there were characters like Earl, who I'd mentioned that I wouldn't really care about previously, who I did care about, added to the music and how these people are going to fight for their lives, and yeah, it sort of felt like this climactic battle was earned. Whereas sometimes in The Walking Dead, when you just see people fighting walkers, you're like, oh, I don't really care. But this week you've got a sense that, right, this could be life or death, this is serious, which I really liked. So the episode finishes with Beta unleashing what I guess is like alcohol at our protagonists in like these little slingshot that are held back. Yeah, that was a bit weird looking at them. But anyway, yeah, they're in like these bombs that he uses in a slingshot to fling at our protagonist, and then they fire arrows after. And I really didn't want it to end, because now our characters are trapped between like the wall of walkers and the hilltop with seemingly nowhere to go. And I just wanted to carry on watching. And I hope that next week does carry on from this, and it's not like a detour where we go spend an hour with Oceanside for some reason, because The Walking Dead can do that sometimes. I don't know what the next episode is like. I haven't looked at previews or anything, so I'm hoping it's a direct continuation, because I really want to see what happens. And again, I'm also hoping that Negan just doesn't stand there and watch everyone get burnt to a crisp. Like, come on Negan, please. Don't prove me wrong. I've defended you so many times. Don't be an arsehole. So to round things up, this was a very good episode of The Walking Dead, my favourite of this second half of the season so far. I didn't want it to end. I loved the build-up, but I enjoyed watching the battle at the end, and I don't really have any complaints about it. It was all round a solid, good episode, and I'm looking forward to next week. So let me know your thoughts below. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you hate it? Did you enjoy this video? And as always, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. I'm going to go inside now because it's very cold. You can see my nose is red. So goodbye.